Hello and welcome into the Sporting Pod. Along with Tony Allegretti and Mauricio Ruiz, I'm Cole Pepper. Today on the pod, the kickoff of the USL Super League and the Premier League this weekend, what Mauricio learned in Madrid, and Tony makes his Sporting Pod debut as an actor,
an agent,
and
director,
a technical director, and everything else. Plus,
just basically carrying the program again.
Again. Plus a new man in charge for the U.S. men's national team. A reminder, we are fed by The Bearded Pig, locally owned and operated with locations in San Marco and Jack's Beach. Make sure you swing by The Bearded Pig for great barbecue and great times. That has been acting, too.
Exactly.
I should have acknowledged that. Let's start first real quickly, guys, with your thoughts on the Olympics. And then we'll segue that from the women's national team into the men's national team because we have a lot of news on that front this week. Tony, gold is the way to go, and pretty impressive when you think about this as a building block for Emma Hayes working forward toward the next Women's World Cup.
Absolutely. They look fantastic. And I think the most important thing was that they really looked like they had fun. I mean, this team can party, they can win, they can score goals, they can get clean sheets. I mean, they're so proud of them.
It meant something to them too. You can tell in the medal ceremony or the immediate reaction at the end. Like, obvious. This is maybe an obvious point, but professionals playing in the Olympics don't always have the same kind of reaction as amateurs have traditionally. But you could tell it meant a lot to them. Most of those women were on the team that had the poor performance in the last World Cup. A bit of a redemption story.
Yeah, it really was, and I think there's some clarity to what Coach Emma Hayes has brought into the environment, and there's a little bit of that timing situation where some of the older players that were still part of the World Cup roster at that time that had a lot of weight in what happens in that environment. You're talking about they can party, but they can also play. It felt like in the previous World Cup, it was not very well balanced. It was more of like, we're here to have a good time and make whether political, social presence, which is all fine in its due time. But then the play didn't really kind of happen at the same time. So it does look like this team brought a better balance to them. They look like they enjoyed themselves. They celebrated well on the end, but there's a clarity to how they were playing. I think Coach Emma Hayes brings that clarity to them, putting people in position to succeed.
Yeah, I really like. We played some of her comments after the gold medal match on the radio show, and she sounds like a winning coach. Some coaches sound like they're managing just to manage. Others are leading to success. She is a lead to success kind of coach.
Well, and if you think about the environment that she's been in, right? I know women's soccer in the U.S. has been dominant from a international standpoint, but really the international club environment, talk about the Arsenals and Barcelonas and Wolfsburgs and obviously Chelsea, where she's come from, they've been leading on the club level environment. And I think club level in the U.S. is coming along. We've had different levels of leagues here, and now obviously the USL Super League and the NWSL being as strong as they've ever been before. Previously, she's been in an EPL level, Champions League level environment, and I know we're going to talk about our future men's national team coach. But those are the people that you rub shoulders with on a daily basis. So she's been in that environment to really know what winning looks like and high demand and high performance looks like.
It's a new era. It's very interesting, watching the trio up front just completely dominate and leaving Alex Morgan at home. We're in an absolutely new era, and it's exciting, and it's really kind of flying.
Yeah, and I thought the midfield was a little bit uneven, honestly, throughout the tournament. Lindsay Horan didn't have her best. Rose Lavelle didn't have her best run. Those are two excellent players with great history and great ability. If they play well, watch out. I mean, I think this has a chance to be a real special generation.
And she played she had a limited roster to play with to begin with, and she rotated very minimal.
Yeah, oh my
I mean, you're talking
God.
about
No
you only
subs.
have 16 field players, right? But she barely used subs,
No.
and the games were kind of thick and heavy. Every 3.5 days, games were kind of coming along. So, there's a little bit of confusion. Why you do have a limited roster, and you don't use that limited roster towards the end of the tournament. They had two overtime games kind of leading up to the final. And the first half looked like against Brazil, and Brazil almost took them. She just brings that winning mentality. And I think once the U.S. is ahead, it's difficult to kind of catch up to them.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift our focus now to the men's team. Obviously, the U23s played in the Olympics, and got out of the group stage and then lost the first matchup to eventual bronze medal winning Morocco. But the big focus now is on Mauricio, the other Mauricio in the world of soccer, the only other one, Mauricio Pochettino, former Chelsea, Tottenham, PSG man, now has agreed to become the head coach for the U.S. men's national team. Tony, when we first started talking about this and who could be a candidate, we talked a lot about Jurgen Klopp as a top English Premier League manager who has been a club manager, not an international manager. Same situation here with Pochettino. What do you think?
Well, I never really thought Klopp was a candidate. Poch definitely was. He's expensive. I can't imagine what we're paying him. I think that's really interesting there. It's a bold move, like very American to go big, so that's great. I kind of defer to experts on him in general. My just sort of understanding of that Mauricio is that he's really kind of underperformed. I mean, the stretch at Tottenham was pretty good, and I think he probably got dismissed a little premature there. But everything else, I just don't know enough about him. I defer to you soccer guys.
Yeah, I think the conversation that we had was whether they needed to hire someone that had World Cup level experience and international football experience. So, I mean, the one thing that I always wanted to hear are criterias, and what were the criterias of hiring someone. And I think Poch is very, very well liked. Everyone that's played for him and under him and worked with him, they really enjoy. I think he got the short end of the stick at Chelsea last year when he brought up a hodgepodge of young players, youngest team in the league, highest expectations from a salary. And
no one knew each other.
No one knew. Yeah. And towards the end of the year, they were making it happen. I mean, they pushed as far as 7th, I think, last year, and they were out of the top 10 for a really long time. It would have been interesting to see what he does with that group, having his hands on the dough a little bit more and making some of his transfers. So I thought he got the short end of the stick there. He was great at Tottenham, did a lot with. Not a little. I mean, he still had a lot of good pieces, but comparatively speaking, made the Champions League final. So I think I'm excited for him because I think he's really well liked, and I think he comes from a high pedigree of coaching. The one question mark, and it's not a knock on him, it's just a knock on the facts that he doesn't have international coaching experience. High level player for Argentina. I think he might have even worked on a national team youth group system for a while. I think that's just a question mark. And Emma Hayes she's answered that in this tournament. She's never had that either. Does Poch know the American market? Emma Hayes worked here a little bit before. So the one common denominator there is Matt Crocker. He worked with him at Southampton when they're in the younger days, and they have a good working relationship, and I think he entrusts him. So I'm sure there's more that we don't know, and hopefully we'll find out in the next couple of days.
Some of the reporting is suggesting that Poch would not have to come over to the United States full time. He could do a lot of his evaluation in Europe because a number of the players who are going to be key in this U.S. Men's national team World Cup roster are playing in Europe. So there's that component to it. I agree with you on the questions about experience in the international level. It's different than in the women's game in some regards, but you met your point about the familiarity with the American landscape is something different. We'll see. It is a splash hire.
It is, yeah.
I would say probably right behind Klopp in terms of these well-known, available guys. Tony's over here
And I'm rolling my eyes.
rolling his eyes.
Well,
as a
I mean, on
Liverpool
that,
guy.
on that, just because only because Klopp was never going to take that job, so I just feel like that's just a weird.
Well, they did reach out to him.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, it's like available or not working.
Yes.
No, I wouldn't say available because he said I'm not available. But the other thing I would just
Point
say,
being from a splash standpoint. Though,
yeah,
this is
of course. Well, and I do think, especially if you're talking about him staying in Europe and watching our first teamers play, that's not, for me, that's helpful. We do need to do well in 26, but that's not a long-term commitment to our system, which really is begging for leadership, in my opinion, in a coach that's going to build a legacy, not just going to get us through the best possible result for 26. To me, that's a bit splashy and short-sighted and expensive, but whatever. If he gets the results, I'll be happy.
I guess I agree with you on the point about this is a right now hire. No matter what kind of success he has with the U.S. men's national team after the World Cup, you have to think he's looking for a job. At that, he's been at Chelsea and PSG and Tottenham. These are three of the top 20 clubs in the world.
Yeah,
he's looking for an opening at Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or whatever it might be after this cycle. I agree with you. I don't think this is a long-term fix. I'm not sure that may be less possible than Jurgen Klopp was, because the focus on doing what they're going to do leading up to a World Cup in this country was so bright. That spotlight is so bright and important for the sport going forward. A good result in this World Cup cycle was I think had to be the number one thought process here. Maybe slightly followed by, can we sell this, and get people excited about it as a result of the hire. Win the press conference.
Yeah, I would agree 2 points there, and they're probably contradictory of each other. I agree that it is for 2026, right? We have to bring in a manager that knows how to work with young players. We still have relatively a young team. However, if you look at the track record of where he has gone after Tottenham, right, and he's kind of was absent for a little bit, and then PSG, then back to Chelsea, there were two very result-driven environments. In a short period, did not get the result. Right. He's got 2 years to work with the group. However, this is my next point. He is very much a developmental coach. He's a coach that needs time, and so is he a short-sighted? Because I do think that you look at someone like Roberto Martinez, for instance. He left club soccer, and now he's
he found his niche.
He found his niche, and maybe that's the issue that Poch was having at Tottenham when they spent all that money into the stadium and they needed to win, and he was a long-term coach. He's like, that's not for me anymore. Goes to PSG and maybe bad hiring or need for employment, but PSG was open and they put poor money on him. But PSG is not a developmental club either. They're win now. Then goes to Chelsea, and there's the project to work with young players, and they're not.
They didn't give him time.
So maybe this is a long-term, because Matt Crocker is very much a developmental sporting director. He wants to build the system from beginning to end, and I'm part of that scouting, so I'm kind of getting a little bit of sense of what's going to happen in the next 10 years, at least what the plan is. And Poch does feel like he is that long-term person, but without the results short-term, that long-term doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot, in my opinion, having a couple of years to work on a good result in the 2026 World Cup will really be the litmus. If we can keep our players' parents from complaining to him about playing time, then it'll be a success. He starts winning some matches. We all look great. And then maybe it's his thing. Maybe he'll be the next Roberto Martinez on and be a national team coach.
Yeah. Did you see, on that note, Jason Tatum's parents are coming out pretty strongly that he didn't get to play a lot in the Olympics for.
Yeah. Don't even start. Don't even start. All right. Also want to bring up that the USL Super League kicks off this weekend. We're recording this on Thursday and Saturday and Sunday. The first 6 teams, 6 of the 8 teams will be kicking off. We'll be in Tampa for the Tampa Bay Sun hosting Dallas Trinity on Sunday. Do we know, is it the Dallas Trinity or Dallas Trinity? At this point,
I think it's just Dallas Trinity.
I think it is too. We'll find out when we get down there.
It's not Ohio.
We'll ask someone, hey, are you guys the Dallas Trinity or just the Dallas Trinity?
Yeah, or
Dallas Trinity.
Yeah.
So, Mauricio, you and I will be down there. We're going to shoot some of the TV show down there. What are your expectations, particularly for this first weekend?
Fan engagement. If you kind of think a little bit of the business of the game and what's happening around and the excitement, I think Tampa, at least from the outside and looking from afar, 4 hours to the opposite coast here, we've seen that they do a pretty good job as far as getting the organization in place. They've hired some really good people from the coaching staff, and obviously their president Christina Uncle, which is a name staple in just world soccer as far as being a top level referee, been involved in it. Some sharp people that they've done. I think they've benefited from being really close to the league and location and being able to kind of tap into those resources. So I'm looking first and foremost, what does a game atmosphere look like? And I'm hoping that the weather's good. It's Sunday in Florida, Sunday afternoon, even-ish. So hopefully all that goes well. As far as quality on the field, players that are really excited for the opportunity to play professional soccer that maybe otherwise would not have gotten if it weren't for this new league and all these opportunities. If you look at, right now, I'm not going to try to do the math, but 8 teams, a 24, 25 average roster. You're talking about like almost nearly 200, 150 new professional players playing in the U.S., kicking off in the next week or so. I think the excitement, hopefully we get to see that excitement and that appreciation, that gratitude for the opportunity. As far as quality of the game, I'll hold back on that opinion because we just don't really know. And I think it would also be unfair to categorize the quality of the league off of the kickoff weekend, right? So oftentimes we state in all sports, regardless, that the first weekend isn't a great performance.
I would say yes, there are a lot of new pros, and that's really what the USL is all about, right? The Super League specifically. There are a lot of former Arsenal, former European players, and one thing that I think is super encouraging is that there's quite a few NWSL loanees, which I think is really cool. I think the inner sort of connectivity of the two leagues at the top of the pyramid is awesome.
All right. Also this weekend, the Premier League kicks off.
Heard of it.
You may have been aware that this is a thing. Tony, why don't you go ahead and start, because I think I know where we're going with this. I want each of us to talk about the game they are most excited about this first weekend of the Premier League season.
Right. Well, it's like every weekend for me is Everton, and Everton will host Brighton. So Brighton is... Man, they did some amazing business over the summer. Brighton was already pretty good, but they went nuts again and have a real almost a new team, and so we'll be challenged. And we did a little transfer business. Actually, it's the first time in a long time we've had a window where we were buying and selling. So that's good. Very excited to see it. It literally starts tomorrow with Fulham and Man U. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. But I'll watch every game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Liverpool at Ipswich. I think that's going to be a really cool atmosphere. Ipswich kind of, coming up, and Liverpool in this new era generation, but they really kind of rolled over nearly the same team from last year, unless I'm missing a big signing here and there. I don't really think Liverpool, quote unquote, improved on their roster outside of just natural progression with the manager that's been with them for a good 3-4 months now, and knew that it wasn't like a summer hire. The manager was announced late spring. So it'll be interesting to see what that group is.
I will say, as much as I don't like Liverpool, the name Arnie's cool. If you have a coach Arnie, I do like that. I do like that. And I'll say they looked really good this whole summer. I don't know if you caught any of their first team. They were good. Yeah, they were in sync for sure.
We'll see how it plays out with the new man in charge. The game I'll be looking forward to is actually the NBC game on Saturday, which is West Ham Aston Villa, because we got to see West Ham here in Jacksonville. Want to see how what we saw through the rain translates. And Aston Villa, fourth last year, the surprise team in the Premier League. They won't have had their European obligations yet. We'll see how they start off. I think the biggest challenge for Aston Villa is going to be how do they manage playing a European schedule in addition to the Premier League campaign. But that'll be the one I'll be looking forward to. And we'll do this every week on the pod, see if there's a specific game that we're most interested in every week it'll probably be Everton for Tony.
Well, probably, yeah. But I would say, too, Aston Villa reloaded. They got Onana off of us, and he's I think fits their system a little better, and they're going to be pretty amazing. Also, just like back to the Ipswich thing, that's USL owned Ipswich.
Yeah. There you go.
So same ownership that owns Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Who are doing quite well this year. All right, Sporting Jacks on TV and radio. The Sporting Jacks Report debuts every week at 12:30 on Wednesday on WJXX, ABC 25, with the encore presentations noon Saturdays on NBC 12 right before the Premier League coverage. So get your Premier League coverage started with us, noon on Saturdays on NBC 12, and then join us every Tuesday at 6 for the Sporting Jack Soccer Hour on 1010 a.m. You can listen live and on demand at 1010xl.com. All right, we were going to do this conversation. I think we need to give it more time than we have this week, so I'm going to push the conversation and how what Mauricio learned in Madrid to next week with Tony. But I do want to point out as well that on August the 22nd, UNF hosts Florida. We'll all be there. We're looking for a big crowd as the Ospreys, after opening the season at Miami and Florida State, will be back home to take on the Gators. Big rallying call for soccer fans in Jacksonville. It is free to attend. If you go, we'd love to know if you're coming, though. So let us know by going to sportingjacks.com and going under the events page. But, Tony, this is a great opportunity to really have a rallying call for local soccer fans and women's soccer fans.
I'll have to say, as a Knoll, I have really started to gravitate to be a Swoop Osprey supporter. I think what Falconer's doing there is really impressive. I mean, and they're coming out like fighting. So they got to play at Miami, their home opener down in Miami, Coral Gables. Yeah. And then they've got to go to Tallahassee and play their home opener.
Might be the best program in the country.
Yeah, got to be.
Yep.
And then to host Becky's Gators. I know it's not Becky's team anymore, but we have heard that she'll be traveling with the team, which is super cool. I just think it's ambitious, and that's what you want. So I'm really excited to go to that. Everybody stop right now, put it in your calendar, 22nd, come on out to UNF.
Well, that's what you want. If you're going to a program that's technically not in the Power Four, right? So you have your ACCs, SECs, and whatever other conferences are considered Power Four now. If you go to a UNF program, you want the opportunity to compete against this bigger, juggernauts and test yourself against them. And maybe you test yourself, and now having a pro team in town, you get to see that competition head to head. So we're going to be there not just in support of it, but also analyzing and evaluating players on both sides of the coin. Again, so it's only an hour away technically in our demographic as well. So these are two local clubs playing against each other at a high level. Last year, UNF performed extremely well against what would have been eventually national champion FSU.
Oh, yeah.
So
again,
for they've been in the final, in a college cup in the last 4 years. Is unbelievable. So this is just a high level game, and this is why you go to programs, local programs like a GU, like a UNF, Flagler, these really good D2 that have been in the Final Four several years under Coach Ashley Holmes as well. So just really high level game. We're excited for it. The local community came out in masses last year. Broke the record of the largest women's attendance game and largest soccer attendance game.
I think largest game in Hodges Stadium history. So I think it from what I understood, it covered anything that they ever had at Hodges. This was the most people they've ever had.
So let's try to break that record
again.
Do it. So come on out. Yeah, next Thursday, 7 p.m. game against UNF against UF.
All right, and a final reminder, go to sportingjacks.com to become a member of Sporting Jacks. Absolutely free. Discounts on club merch, invitations to VIP events, chances to win prizes and experiences. You can also put your deposit down for season tickets for the men's and the women's team while there.
I would just like to add one last little thing, and that is Riley, one of our junior Cub reporters and also team store manager at Sporting Jacks, wrote a really interesting, good preseason update on the Super League. So if you want to learn more about that league before it starts this weekend, go to our website. It'll be in the news section. Excellent little primer.
And with that, we will thank you for listening to The Sporting Pod. For Mauricio Ruiz and Tony Allegretti, I'm Cole Pepper. We'll talk to you next time right here on The Sporting Pod.